Thank you. My name is Qiang, and I'm from Qihoo 360 Gear team in China. Today, I'm very glad to give this talk. So in my talk, I will talk about the QEMU attack surface and the security internals. Although this is talk about QEMU, but actually this may inspire to you in another virtualization software vulnerability discovery and analysis, because this discuss the attack surface. First, this is a brief introduction about our company. Qihoo 360 is one of the most famous security company in China. And for our team, we are focused on the vulnerability discovery and analysis. We are most focused on the core software, for example, virtualization, kernel, browser, NTP, OpenSL, and so on. For me, for us, and we are security researcher, and recently from last year, we are focused on the virtualization software. It includes QEMU, VirtualBox, Linux kernel, and I have spoken in several conferences, for example, Catholic West and RockScan and so on. Okay, this is the agenda. First of all, I will talk about a brief introduction of QEMU, so that for the consideration of some of you may not familiar with this virtualization software, and in the second part, I will talk about the QEMU attack surface. This has been separated two parts. The attack from the guest, I mean the virtual machines, and the other is from the external, I mean the other software who interact with the QEMU. So these two parts has been the third section and fourth section. So in the third section, I will talk about the detail of the attack from the guest. In this section, it will contain the device simulation, which is the most widespread attack surface in virtual machine. I will talk both of the traditional emulation, device emulation, and also the virtual device emulation. And in the first part, I will talk about the attack from the external. For example, VNC, you can using VNC, you can connect it to the VM, and using SPICE, you can also connect it to VM. And in the final part, I will make a summary of this attack surface of QEMU, and also the vulnerabilities we have found. Okay, let's go. First of all, it's a QEMU introduction. Some of you may know that QEMU is a virtualization software. Actually, QEMU has a long history. It can emulate a full system. It includes CPU, memory, and various devices. And it also can do user mode emulation. This means that it can run one process that is compiled for another CPU. So the different CPU can share the same binary. And the start of the QEMU, it is all done emulation by software, and it means no other sense you need. You can emulate a full system, but of course this has a low performance. So you can use accelerators such as QEMU then. So actually, we talk about in recent day we talk about QEMU. We almost mean that we talk about the QEMU and the QEMU. This has compromise one complete virtualization solution. Okay, so this is a brief for QEMU. QEMU is just the user process, just like normal processes. And the QEMU's virtual address space is used as a guest RAM. And QEMU's the guest virtual machine's CPU is mapped to a thread in QEMU's process. So this is a detail of QEMU KVM architecture. In the left top, it is QEMU processes, and in the top to right, it is a guest. Of course, the guest is part of the QEMU. And in the bottom, it is the KVM. So, so the KVM expose interfaces to the user spaces through the DEVA KVM character devices. So the QEMU in the user spaces can interact with KVM using this character devices. It uses this interfaces to run the guest. Just run, let the guest's code run natively in CPU, so it improves the performance very much. So when the guest executes sensitive instruction, it will jumps into KVM. We call this VM exit. So when the KVM recognizes this is a IO event, he will dispatch this IO event to the QEMU, and so QEMU will do the device simulation. So this is just architecture. Okay, so let's go to the QEMU attack surface. In this part, I will talk about the surface in general concept. So we can have a big picture of the QEMU attack surface. And as we know, QEMU, the security issue is about the untrusted data. So we should, let's look at where is the data to the QEMU. So I have separated this into two aspects. The first is data from the virtual machine. The most is device simulation. Also, it's for example, the VL, the VJ, the LED, and the another direction data from data source is from external. For example, the VNC, SBIS, QMP, even though the image. So let's look at the data from VM. So, actually, the device simulation is the most widespread attack surface in QEMU. It has a lot of vulnerabilities and a quite high quantity vulnerabilities. For example, the famous VLOM is based in the Fluby device simulation, and actually the device simulation has two types. One is the traditional. It is used at the beginning, and in recent years, there is to improve the performance of virtualization. It introduced the volatile architecture to improve the performance, and also another data in the VM is the agent. In QEMU, it is called a QEMU guest agent, but this agent is not powerful as the VMware tools. So in this part there is little vulnerabilities, but if you are concerned the VMware, you can know there are lots of vulnerabilities in the VMware tools. So this is the data from the externals. The first one is the VNC, and actually we know VNC is a remote access. It is not used only for VMs, but also for other software. And but the SPICE is also remote access to VMs, but it is used in virtualization environment. It contains 4 parts: protocol, connect, server, guest, and later we will discuss more detailed. And also there is a QMP. This allows applications to interact with QEMU. Another final is malicious image. For example, also the QEMU should passes the image, and if it does not have enough sanity check, there will be a vulnerability. Okay, let's talk detail about the attack surface. First of all, let's talk about the attack from the guest. As I have said, device simulation is the biggest source of vulnerabilities. This is a traditional device simulation. So here I have separated the device simulation as emulation and Word.io. And the Word.io is IO parallel virtualization for KVM. This can improve the performance. And also in the device simulation, there is a attack we should notice is the third library. For example, VRGL rendering. Okay, let's go to the detail. Most of the devices in QEMU are software emulation based. This means that the guest is unaware of the underlying virtualization environment. For example, you can run Windows or Linux or other in the virtual machine. The guest OS just probe the devices as it is run in the real hardware. So as there are a lot of real devices in the real world, so the QEMU should also emulate a lot of devices such as disk, network cards. So more devices, more vulnerabilities. So here is the device simulation data flow. As we know, the real hardware exposes the base address register to the guest OS. So the guest OS can read or write these registers, and so through this it can drive the hardware to work. So QEMU should provide this layer in device simulation, and the most important thing is to register callbacks for this BAR. So when the guest read or write the registers, it can do something and complete the simulation. So the guest can have the function of this device. So the guest OS interact with the devices by reading and writing the BARs registered by the devices. And so in virtualization environment, this operation will make the guest jump to the KVM. And the KVM recognize this is a IO event. It will dispatch this request to the QEMU. So let's summarize this data flow. So the request, the data first generates in the guest and then transfer to KVM and then go to the QEMU. So if we don't consider vulnerabilities in KVM, we can summarize the data flow as this: the guest to the QEMU. So there are a lot of devices, and there can be a lot of input data. So if QEMU doesn't have enough sanity check of the guest data, there can be a lot of vulnerabilities. So let's see how to do this attack. There are two types of BAR. IO ports in in H6 in X. So there are L port and MML. So as we know, the driver, the normal driver just read or write the BARs of devices. So we actually the attacker, for example, they have the whole system of the guest virtual machine. So he can insert a malicious kernel module just to act as a driver. Then he can read or write output MML to trigger the flows in QEMU, just as the red line shows. So let's look at a concrete example of device simulation vulnerability. This is CVE 27.17.26.15. This is a vulnerability based in the secret VGA. So when we copy data, when we copy VGA data while bit-built copy in back mode, it will trigger out-of-bounds read access issue. So let's look at the detail of this vulnerability. First, let's look at the right picture. As we have said, we can write data to the VGA port through the out instruction. So when we out the data to the VGA output, and it will traps into the QEM, and the QEM handoff function will dispatch this write action to the QEMU's QEM handle. So look at the left picture. So in the QEM handle, it will find the callbacks the VGA devices have registered. So it will call output write, and so in the secret bit video copy function, it will check the range of the copying data. So this issue is here. It does not have enough for the corner cases of the range. So the patch has add something to address this issue. So let's summarize this as this. So in the guest we write data to the output, and then we can finally trigger the vulnerabilities in the QEMU's device simulation part. Actually, in QEMU's vulnerability, this kind of vulnerability has a lot. The QEMU's vulnerability is most this kind of the VLAN and this secret VGA, the USB device simulation. A lot of devices are a lot of vulnerability. So let's talk about the what I/O. And I have said the device simulation, the traditional device simulation has a low performance. Why? Because because there are a lot of layers. So you can see from the guest the QEM and the QEMU, every VM exit has a cost. So what I/O is for our parallel virtualization. In this mode, the guest is aware of that he is underlying the virtualization environment. So in this device simulation, there has been separated two parts. The front end is in the guest, and the back end is in the QEMU. And through what I/O, it decreases the VM access very much, and also for some devices, it can execution parallelize. So here is the workflow of what I/O. In the guest, the VirtIO driver first and the data to the variance in buffer. You can image variant as a the channel exchange data. So the guest and the data to the variance in buffer, and this data of course can be any value. And then when it is prepared the data, it trigger a kick to notice the QEMU part to fetch the data, and then QEMU can pop the data up and process the request, and when he finishes the request, he will push the results to the variance out buffer, and he will notice the guest through an interrupt. So the guest driver receive an interrupt, he can fetch the data. This is the request results. So here we can see the malicious guest can write the data to QEMU. Here is the code of a Vertex model. Every device has one or several weak-queen. This weak-queen is used to change data, and every weak-queen has a handler to process the request. So here let's look at the code in the device realization. We will register the handler of weak-queen handler for the device's weak-queen, and in the handler we will pop the request from the guest, and we will process it and then push the results to the guest and then notify the guest. So handler is used to pop the request from guest, and so all Vertex devices process the request in this model. So let's look at how to process the request from guest. And it's easy to imagine that for every devices, and they have different requests, and just as the real hardware does. The request, so we first need to the request change to command, and this is done by the handler, Vertex sequence handler, and the guest prepare this request, and they have a protocol. Every device have this protocol. So in the Vertex handler, he can decode the request, and the request can be failed totally by the VM. This also can be trigger a lot of vulnerabilities. So another concrete example of Vertex attack. This Vertex FS, this picture may not is a little complicated, but the Vertex FS concept is very easy. They just share the files between the guest and the host. So the concept is so easy. So when you open or write a file in the guest, and it has been mapped into the host. So this is a share files Vertex FS. So we have said the vertical is process the request from guest. So in Vertex FS, every kind of request has a handler. So there is a handler error to process the request. For example, the VLAN FS read function is to process the read size call from the guest, and the VLAN FS open function is to process the open size call in the guest. And in the handler function, every handler would unmarshal the argument from the guest. So for example, here PDU on the right picture, PDU unmarshal, and the FD off and the max count. its arguments can totally controlled by the guest. So if there has not enough sanity check, vulnerability occurs. For example, this is an vulnerability in WorldFS CVE 2016-91-4. This vulnerability is best in the write or read function. When the guest read or writes the file's extend attributes, it can trigger this vulnerability. The issue is here. As we have said, the count they have can totally controlled by the guest, but here the write count is just an int, and extend attributes len is an 64 bytes int, but heap minus of is unsigned int. So this issue is the mix is he mix used the int and unsigned int 32 and 64 bytes value. So it can be so it is easy to make an integer overflow, and later I will use this write count to call as the copies length. This will trigger buffer overflow. So I will talk a little about the attack from the third level. So QEMU as other softwares use a lot of third library, and where RGL rendering is an example. It is used to accelerate the 3D rendering. A lot of vulnerability has been found in these labs. So here is the detail of this third libraries. So and we have said the request from the VM and then go to the QEMU's volatile device simulation, and then volatile uses this third library, and we can see in the right picture the third library also decode the request, and in this decode it does not has enough sanity check of the data from the guest, so vulnerability occurs. This library has a lot of vulnerabilities, and also QEMU uses another third library. So let's go to the next part, attack from the external. First of all is VNC. VNC is for desktop sharing system based RFB protocol. Actually, it is not used in QEMU. It is used in a lot of where. And in QEMU, it has a built-in VNC server, so the remote connector can connect to the server and see the virtual machine's desktop. And several vulnerabilities have been found in this. So this is an example of VNC vulnerability. As we know, the protocol is the protocol contains the data exchange, and so they connect to this vulnerability is occurred when the remote connect send an set pixel format message to the server, and so in the QEMU part, it will just use this data, but with no check. So in later, it uses this data as use this data. So this will cause a divided by 0, divided by 0, divided by 0 initial. Another attack is from the spice. And we know spice is for remote access to VMs. This is just for virtual machine, and it contains protocol, connected server, and the guest. As we can see this picture, there are a lot of data exchange in two parts. For example, in the QEMU in the virtual machines, QTIL driver and to the devices, and they connected to the server, just like when say this data change can have vulnerabilities if the sanity check is not enough. So here is an example of this. So this function reads hand read link down is called when the remote collected to when the remote collected to the server to the special server. Special server, of course, is in the QEMU. So this function is called when the remote connected to this, and the link mesh is a pointer to the packet data. So the number channel caps and the number common caps can be any value of. So before this patch, it can be any value, and so it's easy to make an integer overflow in the number caps. So later memory corruption will occur. Another QMP. QMP is used to interact with QEMU, so the other application can interact with QEMU. It is a lightweight text-based, JSON-based data format. It is very useful, for example, such as campus negation, device hot device hotplug, and so on. But actually, this is a little has limited because the attacker may not have this may not have this campus cannot because the attacker may not able to do this. So here is just an example of this. So in the QMP, it can send the key to the virtual machine, but there is a vulnerability just like this. This initial occurs when the send key command is processed with QEMU. So when you use send key and the QEMU is larger, and the QEMU variable here will be big, and in the bottom this sign 0 will cause an out of bounds write. Okay, so this summary is briefly. Most of our vulnerability is from the guest. Actually, as we know, most actually this virtualization vulnerability is the scenario is in the cloud. So if the cloud provider give you a virtual machine, you have the total control of the virtual machine. So the most vulnerability is from the guest, because the guest can just control the guest may compromise the host, and in the guest side vulnerability, device simulation is the biggest attack surface. As we have seen, a lot of device simulation vulnerability has been found. And the versatile and the third level security should be taken more focus. Though this is for QEMU, so if you concern virtualization security, you you can know that in VMware, in VirtualBox, and in other in FreeBSD, and their virtualization solution is the security is most about their guest, and so they volatile. The third summary is the volatile, and the third number security should take more focus. Also actually this topic is about QEMU, but their attack surface is applied can be applied to the other virtualization solution. If you can say VMware in this year the Power2O's VMware escaping just also the device the vulnerability used in the Power2O is just contained in the first is the device simulation and the VM tools just here according to this device simulation and the QGA, but QGA is not powerful as the VMware VM tools. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Qiang.